Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from St. Augustine, Doctor of the Church, while we read his book, Confessions. Hello, Catholic pilgrims, welcome. If you have your book in front of you, then you know that we have a long reading today. And I have found that with these types of books, long readings can make you zone out. With novels, we can read many, many pages, but with religious books, theological books, we struggle to keep our focus. And why is that? Well, because it's not riveting and there are no cliffhangers leaving you curious as to what happens next. This is why I do my seasons in bite-sized chunks. These types of books just can't be devoured. But the good news is that this longer section I don't think is boring or tedious. At least, I don't think so. St. Augustine is going to explain to us how he came to leave astrology behind. Let's start by turning to page 139 and reading from Book 7, Chapter 6. By this time, I had also turned my back upon the astrologers with their illusionary claims to predict the future and their insane and impious ritual. In this too, my God, let me acknowledge your mercy from the deepest depths of my soul. For you and you alone are the life that recalls us from the death we die each time we err. You alone are the life which never dies, and the wisdom that needs no light besides itself, but illumines all who need to be enlightened, the wisdom that governs the world down to the leaves that flutter on the trees. You provided me with a friend who cured my stubborn resistance both to that wise old man, Venetianus, and to Nebridius, who, for all his youth, was gifted with spiritual qualities that I greatly admired. Venetianus was quite outspoken on the subject of astrology. Nebridius was not so ready to declare himself, although he too repeated often enough that there was no art by which the future could be foretold. They said that guesswork was often borne out by mere chance. If a man made a great many predictions, several of them would later prove to be true, but he could not know it at the time and would only hit upon them by chance, simply by opening his mouth to speak. So, to cure my obstinacy, you found me a friend who was usually ready enough to consult the astrologers. He had made no real study of their lore, but as I have said, he used to make inquiries of them out of curiosity. He did this although he was perfectly well aware of certain facts about them which he said he had heard from his father. If only he had realized it, these facts would have been quite enough to destroy his belief in astrology. This man, whose name is Firminus, had been educated in the liberal arts and had received a thorough training in rhetoric. He came to consult me as his closest friend about some business matters of which he had high hopes, and asked me what prospects I could see in his horoscope, as I call it. I was already beginning to change my mind in favor of Nebridius's opinions on astrology, but I did not refuse outright to read the stars for him and tell him what I saw, though I had little faith in it myself. Nevertheless, I added that I was almost convinced that it was all absurd and quite meaningless. He then told me that his father had studied books of astrology with the greatest interest and had had a friend who shared his enthusiasm for the subject. Each was as intent upon this nonsense as the other, and by pooling their experiences, they whetted their enthusiasm to the point that even when their domestic animals had litters, they would note the exact moment of birth and record the position of the stars, intending to use these observations for their experiments in the so-called art. Firminus went on to tell me a story about his own birth. His father had told him that when his mother was pregnant, a female slave in the household of this friend was also expecting a child. Her master was of course aware of her condition because he used to take very great care to find out even when his dogs were due to have puppies. The two men made the most minute calculations to determine the time of labor of both the women, counting the days, the hours, and even the minutes. And it so happened that both gave birth at exactly the same moment. This meant that the horoscopes which they cast for the two babies had to be exactly the same, down to the smallest particular, though one was the son of the master of the house and the other a slave. For as soon as labor began, each man informed the other of the situation in his house, and each had a messenger waiting ready to be sent to the other as soon as the birth was announced. As the confinements took place in their own houses, they could easily arrange to be told without delay. The messengers, so Firminus told me, crossed paths at a point which was exactly halfway between the two houses, so that each of the two friends inevitably made an identical observation of the stars and could not find the least difference in the time of birth. Yet Firminus, who was born of a rich family, strolled along the smoother paths of life. His wealth increased and high honors came his way. But the slave continued to serve his masters. Firminus, who knew him, said that his lot had been in no way bettered. I believed this story when I heard it because Firminus was a man whom I could trust. It marked the final end of all my doubts, and my first reaction was to try to redeem Firminus from his interest in astrology. I told him that if I had cast his horoscope and my reading of the stars was correct, I could only have seen in them that his parents were important people, that he belonged to one of the noble families of the town, that he was a free man by birth, that his upbringing suited his rank, and that his education was liberal. But the slave was born under the very same constellations, and if he had asked me to tell him their meaning, my interpretation of them could not have been true unless I saw in them a family of the meanest sort, the status of a slave, and various other details entirely different from and inconsistent with those which applied to Firminus. This proved that if I were to say what was actually the truth, I should give a different answer to each, though the stars I read were the same. Whereas, if I gave the same answer to each, I should be wrong in fact. It was therefore perfectly clear to me that when predictions based on observation of the stars turn out to be true, it is a matter of luck, not of skill. When they turn out to be wrong, it is not due to lack of skill, but to the perversity of chance. Taking this as my starting point, I began to think the matter over in my mind, so that I should have an answer ready if the eccentrics who made their living at this trade should raise the objection that the story, as Firminus told it, was untrue, or that he had been misinformed by his father. By now I was eager to move to the attack and reduce these people to silence by ridicule. So I turned my attention to the case of twins, who are generally born within a short range of each other. Whatever significance in the natural order the astrologers may attribute to this interval of time, it is too short to be appreciated by human observation, and no allowance can be made for it in the charts, which an astrologer has to consult in order to cast a true horoscope. His predictions, then, will not be true, because he would have consulted the same charts for both Esau and Jacob, and would have made the same predictions for each of them, whereas it is a fact that the same things did not happen to them both. Therefore, either he would have been wrong in his predictions, or, if his forecast was correct, he would not have predicted the same future for each, and yet he would have consulted the same chart in each case. This proves that if he had foretold the truth, it would have been by luck, not by skill. For, O Lord, though neither the astrologers nor those who consult them know it, by your secret prompting each man, when he seeks their advice, hears what it is right for him to hear. For you rule the universe with the utmost justice, and in the inscrutable depths of your just judgment you know what is right for him, because you can see the hidden merits of our souls. And let no man question the why or the wherefore of your judgment. This he must not do, for he is only a man. I learned a fun fact the other day. Studying the stars is the oldest known science on Earth. We've been looking at the heavens for a very long time now. Now, I put science in quotes and I'll explain why. Most sciences end with the suffix ology, like biology is the study of living things, geology is the study of the earth. Astrology, the study of the stars, is not the same as astronomy. Astrology is the one, as Catholics, that we can't participate in. And this is where you give meaning to constellations and the zodiac signs, and you try to look for answers to the future by their positioning. But since the word astrology was already taken, the actual study of the stars for legitimate scientific reasons is called astronomy. And the onomy at the end of it means the laws or rules of the stars. So you can be an astronomer, someone who studies the laws of the stars, but you can't be an astrologer, someone who interprets the positions and movements of celestial bodies at a specific time, usually birth, to analyze personality, predict future trends, or offer guidance. I know, it's confusing. Now, I don't want to go on too much here because it was a long reading. You all have other things to do, but it's important to see that everything St. Augustine finally discerns about astrology is bogus. If things seem to work out, it really is just luck and chance. And as Christians, we look to God for understanding and guidance, not giant gas balls that burn in the sky and were created by God. They have zero ability to tell you anything about your personal life. That is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I'll see you back here soon for a shorter reading. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.